Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on episode 4 of the anime series 3D Kanojo Real Girl. This episode, man, this episode was like the living embodiment of the meme. Well, that escalated quickly, and in all the wrong ways, I gotta say. Thus far, this anime series has been a little bit hit and miss for me. Coming off the first episode, as I've talked about in my previous subsequent videos from my first impressions video of episode 1, I said it was the first thing that came along in the spring 2018 anime season that really stoked my curiosity and got up my excitement because of the interpersonal interconnectivity going on in the characterization, the dynamic between Satsui and Iroha. They're both having each other's backs, and even though Iroha has been a little bit enigmatic, a little bit mysterious as to what her true motivations are, the whole first episode really genuinely excited me, and I was stoked to get into, the following episode. When episode 2 rolls around, I'm like, what in the hell is going on? It was inexplicable the way she's lying every other line of dialogue and contradicting herself for like the first three quarters of episode 2. And finally, by the end, it was heartwarming again, and the dynamics that were going on between Satsui and Iroha, it had all come back around to the excitement and the curiosity that I had, felt in episode 1. But it was definitely like a miss of an episode almost entirely before that ending for episode 2. Episode 3 comes along, and I'm right back into the zone again, much as I was with the first episode with the debut of Ishino and her whole dynamic, much as I, spouted superlatives all through my episode 3 discussion video. And so now we're on to episode 4, and I feel like the whole incredulous nature of what was going on in episode 2 for the first half, 3/4 of it, is back to form in this episode, because I didn't know what in the hell was going on with Satsui and Iroha in the beginning, of this episode. She comes to him requesting that he teach her something, and of course I'm still having, flashbacks of her bringing him to like a love hotel and wanting him to mount her and all this kind of stuff. Lo and behold, I was pleasantly surprised to find no, she's just having trouble with math. Problems with the word problems, as it were, making sense of them, and I'm right there with her on that. That was something that always, just brought me to boil with frustration when I was back in middle school and such like that, before going on to get my GED. But Satsui at this point is acting completely just weird. His sort of idea about sitting next to her, and then I was altogether unclear. Is he imagining himself like launching at her and sort of trying to grapple onto her, and then he recoils and he's over by his door and he's like, oh my god, what did I do? And she seems really weirded out by it. Like, is he imagining it? Did he actually do that? I couldn't make sense of exactly what in the hell was going on. Whether it was really happening or he was imagining it. They did not clearly define what was in his head and what was actually happening. If there was any distinction. For all intents and purposes, I felt like the whole scenario of his, trying to like grab her or feel her up or whatever he was going to do before asking, could I sit next to you? I guess it did happen. Like, I'm not sure. Because she got a weird expression on her face, and at one point she, like, the whole time they're looking down rather than making eye contact, and I'm thinking, because she puts her hand up like this, like she's pointing, and I'm like, is she implying that maybe he's got a boner or something? Like, he got that awkward by imagining himself going and being in physical contact with her? And again, I didn't know. Was this happening? Was he imagining it? I could not tell. Then we sort of snap back to, and he's still on his side of the table. And that's when he broaches the idea, well, could I come over to your side? And I'll be able to wrap my mind around what, how I have to teach you the word problem, how to understand it, and the decimal points and everything like that. And so then he, like, we never see him get up, but he, like, is suddenly holding her and embracing her while she's completely weirded out. And like, I'm like, okay, what is happening? What is happening here? The editing of this, the direction of it, I can't make sense of what actually happened, what he imagined, if any of it's happening, if all of it's happened. And then he gets it into his mind, oh, well, at least my mom and my brother won't, like, sneak into my room or won't come barging in now. You know, they know that we're up here and we're not really getting into anything. And there's his mother and brother. They're staring in the door. The brother can't believe it. He's complete incredulity. And the mother's like, oh, well, come on, kiss her. Come on, get it on. You know, I'm like, is this really happening? I don't know. You know, they kind of leave it off for all intents and purposes that, yeah, the mother and the brother were scoping out what was going on with Tsutsui. Is he going to make a move on her or not? And they're wondering. They're rooting for him and everything. And I'm like, what if they did? What if they did, you know, go further? Are you going to just watch, Mom? Like, ew. Okay, so that, once that was said and done, that was it. Like, okay, I'm ready to move on. I don't know what in the hell was going on with this. So then Tsutsui is, you know, sort of debuted to this love letter in his locker at school or whatever like that. And I'm like, this is strange. You know, they didn't have it translated that there was any signature or anything. I assumed it wasn't Iroha. And as you know, she comes over and she's like, oh, you're a popular guy with the girls nowadays. You know, maybe some girl actually, you know, likes you. And you know, he's all fearful about it. He doesn't want to go find out and whatever like that. But she has, you know, a pretty down-to-earth approach. Like, you don't want to leave the person hanging. If it's genuine, if it's real, if there's any truth to it whatsoever, you want to go at least to turn them down kindly. You're with Iroha and everything like that, and even though he's not sure if he's with her or not, you know, he doesn't know. He hasn't made his mind up. And so, of course, we have the integral bully, Mitsuya, which I don't think they ever said his name in the entirety of the episode. Because at least for me, I'm like, oh, crap, what was that blonde guy's name? And I had to go look on my enemy list after watching the episode. He's listed as Mitsuya. We learned his little sister's name, and now I can't honestly remember. Was it Anzu or Anzo? You know, but he, for all intents and purposes, has his eyes set on Iroha. I guess he's like the popular guy, and he wants the girl who's unattainable, the one that he can't wrap his mind around by any stretch of the imagination what exactly she sees in Tsutsui, what interest she could possibly have in him. And he thinks of himself so highly, you know, he's so smug and he's got a chip on his shoulder. I'm so much better than you, you weird otaku bastard. I'm going to take her away. And of course, Tsutsui trying his best to be courageous. And he ends up getting, you know, smacked on the chops for all his effort. And he's ready to, you know, sort of give it up and just give up Iroha. I mean, he's already been uncertain about whether or not he has feelings for her and whether or not he's deserving or worthy of her affections and attentions. And so it was really frustrating because while I could identify to certain aspects of his mentality, it just seems so embellished that, you know, he's so used to being downtrodden. He's so used to not getting anything and not having friends other than, you know, Ito or whatever cat ears dude's name is. And so it was frustrating to me because he's laying there on the ground and he's lamenting and he's like, what's the point? You know, Mitsuya is going to be the guy that ends up with her. And suddenly this little girl, as we find out, it's Mitsuya's little sister, shows up crying in this playground where, you know, Tsutsui had gone back to. This was a place he spent by himself, by his lonesome, whenever he was depressed or really mulling over the crap he was enduring every day in school. And he tries to be a stand-up guy. He tries to help the little girl and everything like that. He actually says, well, you know, do you know where your brother was? Do you know what your address is? Maybe we should go to the police. And the kid doesn't want to do any of these things. So he's like, well, you know, I have a brother about your age. Maybe I can bring him back to my house. My mom will help figure out, you know, what to do and find out who your parents are, whatever like that. And it's interesting how it works out toward the end where Mitsuya's little sister Anzo or Anzu, whatever it is, actually is really closely knit with Kaoru, you know, Tsutsuy's little brother. So it's like smack upside the head with this. But of course, we have Mitsuya showing up and being like, what is this ugly, disgusting otaku doing with my sister? Scream, scream, because of course, Tsutsui thought, well, I'm gonna put your face online and brandish you for being a pervert, or, you know, say you're doing all this nasty stuff if you interfere with me and Iroha and all this stuff. And I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, okay, good that you stood up for yourself, kind of. You know, you're kind of threatening the bully who's threatening you or whatever like that, the counter threat or whatever. But I'm like, okay, so he's grown a pair. He's, you know, vocalizing. He's standing up for himself a little bit, standing up for Iroha a little bit. And, but this guy effectively usurps his idea by having his little sister scream bloody murder as a cop's going by on a bike. And so they make him look like the pervert. They make Tsutsui look like this lolicon pervert and all this stuff. He was trying to make off with the little girl. And that's where I say it's like, wow, that escalated quickly. And again, another smack upside the head, like facepalm town. You know, I'm just like, oh my God. And then of course he goes to school, and because he's already branded as an otaku and a weirdo sitting in the back of the class by himself, he's with the cat ears guy all the time. Oh, well, of course, go figure, he's a lolicon, he's a pervert, he's trying to get kids to go back to his place or whatever. Everybody believes it, you know, just automatically. As an extension of what they already know and figure about him. What I liked is that Ito and Iroha, they both stand up for him. I was a little disappointed in Ishino, to be honest, because she's the one who comes up and is like, you know, I knew you were gross, but I didn't know you were that gross. You're really gross. You know? I'm like, bitch, you know him now. You befriended him. Look at all the time you spent with him and Cat Ears and Iroha in the previous episode. She kind of backpedaled the characterization-wise with that. And then, like, just the whole rest of it, like, we end with a cliffhanger where Iroha eventually figures this out because she runs into the little girl as she's leaving school, you know. Tsutsui's constantly, like, demanding, no, you're not going to walk home with me when we leave, you know, when we go home or whatever after school, because of this now disgusting reputation I have. It can only hurt you and ruin your life and everything like that. Let's wait till it blows over, everything smooths over, and then we'll get back together kind of thing. He's thinking of her best interest, but it's really his depressive, sad sacking that it's an extension of. And again, that's frustrating, but then we have Iroha, as I say, she runs into Mitsuya's little sister, Anzo, or Anzu, or whatever it is, who trips, falls, she helps her up, and Mitsuya's right there, and he's gleaming and bustling, because here's Iroha, the girl that, you know, at one point, she bold-facedly turns him down. He approaches her, and she's like, no, Tsutsuy's enough for me. F off. I don't need to explain myself to you, jerk face. I like him, I don't like you. F off. Especially with the rumors you spread. And that cliffhanger that comes toward the end is the other leg finally dropping, that here the little girl is like, you know, that's the boy I like's older brother that you got in trouble because you told me to scream. And Iroha hears all of this, and then the credits roll. And I wanted to choke something because, like, I was thinking, okay, that's going to be what happens, right? That has to happen somehow or other with you know, Kaoru explaining the fact that his older brother now has been implicated as being a perv and a pedo and everything like that. He's explained this to Anzu, whatever it is, and she's going to figure it out. She's going to go back, and I thought maybe she would express herself to Iroha. I didn't expect Mitsuya to be there, you know, the guy who implicated Tsutsui to begin with, her older brother, but he's there, and I'm like, okay, well, she's gonna spill the beans right now, right? And this is gonna set everything right. Like, maybe other people will hear it or something like that, or Iroha will situate it so that everyone's gonna, you know, he's gonna have to tell the truth or something like that. Like, maybe I'll go on a date with you if you reveal the fact that you set him up or something. But none of that until whatever the next episode, you know, whatever happens in it. We're gonna have to wait a week before we find out. And I was just like, So this episode, in case you haven't figured it out, was a little bit frustrating for me. Was definitely more scaling toward the miss side rather than a hit, because first episode knocked it out of the park. Second episode was meh, and really missed for me because I couldn't make sense of it all the way up until like almost the very end, you know, 3/4 of the way through it. And then was saved in the end. Episode 3, a thorough hit once again, much like episode 1 was for me. And now this episode, where it's just like people are acting weird. There isn't enough of a distinction made in the editing or the switching back and forth as to what he's imagining, what he wasn't, you know, everything like that. And then just character motivations, character choices, the way they're behaving around each other. And again, Ishino's dialing back, backpedaling in her characterization and depth, where, you know, how far she had evolved in just the one single episode, episode 3. So I really hope that in a week's time, episode 5 is a hit again, gets it back on track, and Mitsuya gets what he has coming to him for being a lying sack of, you know, thorough a-hole, d-bag, and all of that stuff with what he implicated Setsuya as being responsible for. And even his mother sort of gives up hope on him because he's an otaku. She's just like, I should have known, I should have seen it coming. You were such a good child, but then you got into anime. You sad soul. Oh. I don't know, man. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you've seen episode 4 of 3D Kanojo Real Girl, if you're following the series, if you agree with me at all. If you don't, of course, you can be completely free to disagree with me in the comments below. If you thought this episode was pitch perfect and made a whole lot of sense, where you think I'm just flapping my gums, not making any sense in my criticisms of it. But, yeah. Until the next one, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. If this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.